After Thomas Tuchel's first game against Wolves, I guess expectations have now risen. Could the game versus Burnley tomorrow at 12 PM be the perfect game for Tuchel? Ideally. We have an incredible recent record against Burnley, winning 5 out of our past 6 games, being undefeated in all 6, scoring at least 2 goals per game in these encounters. Last season when we beat Burnley 4-2, we saw the introduction of Jorginho and Cover as the pivot, and throughout large parts of last season, they played a key part. In that 4-2 win, we saw Christian Pulisic get his first hat-trick for us, and it was that hat-trick that kickstarted his form. This year, we saw our best footballing performance against Burnley. It was a comfortable 3-0 win, demonstrating the team's potential and attacking prowess. Has the Burnley game come at the perfect time for Thomas Tuchel to give us a glimpse and a teaser behind his plans to rebuild our attack? In today's match preview, I'm going to break down Thomas Tuchel's predicted lineups. Now, of course, we know that Tuchel is a man that likes to base his tactics and systems against the opposition. He is a manager that does believe in targeting an opposition team's weakness and then finding the tactics and ways to exploit that. So I'm going to spend a large part of the match preview breaking down some possible formations, teams, lineups, and different methods and ways that Tuchel may have in plan for the game against Burnley. So I hope you guys do enjoy, and if you do, remember to smash that like button and make sure to comment below, because I want to know what lineup you would like to see against Burnley tomorrow. Now, before I continue on, I do want to give a little bit of an intro. Now, yesterday we saw the club release some press shots showing some of Tuchel's creative methods when it comes to training. We saw Tuchel introduce some creative methods behind training yesterday by introducing smaller balls for the team to work with. Now, is Tuchel just some Einstein football professor that is just looking to do the most every single time? No. And as explained beautifully by youth coach Sebastian Chapuis, he explained due to our congested period of games, periodization is needed. Now, due to the amount of games we have in such a short period of time, we can't use every single training session with the same intensity. So, lighter sessions are needed in between. They're known as the periodization sessions, and with these periodization sessions, you can be as creative with them as you want. Now, Tuchel introduced smaller balls in yesterday's training session, and there's some reasons behind this. I mean, number one, it's an attempt to help build squad morale. Of course, the players are out there having fun. It's something different that they're not used to for a while, I'm assuming. At the same time, improving their first touch play, because in Tuchel's possession-heavy system, being comfortable in tight areas is key. So, in a sense, this is like a light-hearted way to introduce some of the future methods that I'm sure these guys will be training in intensely as the season does go on. And now, you guys, we now move on to the predictor lineup. Now, for this section, I'm going to focus on 4 different lineups. I think it's the most that I've done, and for very good reason, because as I keep stressing, Tuchel is a manager that likes to base his lineups, his formations, his teams, depending on the opposition and their weakness. As the season does go on, I'm sure we're going to get a stronger understanding behind how Tuchel may be thinking, allowing us to be a lot more accurate when it comes to our predictions. And considering that at this point in time, Tuchel has a full strength team to work with, and after he stated that the lineup that he picked against Wolves was extremely unfair, you can imagine that we're going to see so many different variations in lineups as the season draws to an end. Now, for the first lineup, I've gone for the continuation of the 3-4-2-1 that we saw in the game versus Wolves. In this lineup, it's fairly identical to the same lineup versus Wolves. However, the 2 changes I have made are Reece James for Azpilicueta and N'Golo Kante for Jorginho. Now that Kante is back in the team, Tuchel may feel that having him playing as the holding 6 alongside Cover could allow for players to push higher up the field. We could potentially see Reece James playing as like a makeshift fullback in this game, where he has the responsibility a lot of times to position himself in the midfield line so he can contribute more to our attacks. With this lineup, my thinking is that maybe Tuchel wants to build some tactical consistency slowly, and continuing the same formation and ideas from the last game could allow for his new team to transition easier when it comes to understanding Tuchel's ideas. In this formation, we've seen that in the offensive phase, it does become a 3-2-5, and I feel like if we were to continue on in the same measure, then I think Reece James would be the candidate I use over Aspi when it comes to using him in that makeshift back 3, because, Reece has tons of experience playing in this way before. It's nothing new to him, and with his amazing crossing ability, you feel like that could create more avenues and opportunities for the attacking players. And up front, I've gone for Tammy Abraham over Giroud, because I felt like Giroud was quite isolated, only staying in the middle. Tuchel may feel that with Tammy, he offers more dimension, he has more mobility, he can stretch the play, he can be that focal presence up front as well, and he's great at creating space for your other players too. So that was my idea for the 3-4-2-1. We now move on to the 4-3-3, and with this lineup, it's very similar to the lineup that Lampard used in our earlier 3-0 win against them. In this team, I've gone for Hudson, Tammy, Ziyech up front. Midfield of Mason, Jorginho, and Kai Havertz. Defense as Ben, Rudiger, Silva, James, and Mendy in goal. Now, just because the lineup is similar to what Lampard used doesn't mean that it's going to be played in the same way. With Tuchel, one of the most immediate things to learn about him is that we aren't necessarily going to be a team that looks to press high and force opposition mistakes in their half. Tuchel prefers to destroy teams on the counter-attack. He prefers to limit their opportunities in these areas, and to do that, using like a mid-block setup is a lot better, because then you can have players congesting certain areas of the field to snuff out these attacks and prevent the danger from happening in the first place. In Tuchel's 4-3-3, off the ball, I could see players like Ben and Reece James tucking a bit more in field to, help Jorginho out. In the offensive phase, I could see us turning into a 3-4-3 with players like Callum and Kai playing in those half spaces very close to Tammy Abraham. Ziyech could operate more maybe in midfield, where he has the creativity to attract players towards him, to create from deep. And with my idea for this formation, essentially because we know that Burnley are going to sit deep, defend with like all their men in their own half, and not really make too many attempts to press and counter, having an additional player in the final third could be key to breaking down Burnley. Now for the third formation, I've gone for a 4-2-2-2. As you guys can see in the team, I've gone for Werner and Kai up front, Hudson-Odoi and Ziyech playing as the attacking playmakers, Kova and Kante as that midfield too, with the standard backline and goalkeeper. Now, of course, this formation would depend heavily on the actual fitness of Kante, because as we heard in Tuchel's last press conference, he does see Kante as a holding six. And potentially due to this, Tuchel may feel like this could be an opportunity to help boost the confidence of Timo Werner. With Werner, we know that he is heavily reliant on his pace, and because he plays in that left-hand channel, he tends to do a bit better playing alongside another player, and this is where Kai Havertz can come into play, because of course Kai is moving inside the box. His ability to, of course, play in those high positions could be key to allow Werner to be able to run into spaces. However, against a Burnley team that are going to sit deep in defence, how much space is there really going to be? But because this is a 4-2-2-2, maybe we could create space, and this would be heavily dependent on your players like Hudson-Odoi and Ziyech. These guys would be playing in the half spaces, they'd be tucked in fields, allowing the fullbacks to stretch the play, go high and wide. We could really pin Burnley in their own half and, put players in positions to draw the attention of the Burnley defenders, creating spaces for your Kais and your Werners to move into. It does feel like if we see Werner playing, it's only my hunch, but I guess we could see him play more up front in a 2, compared to playing as like a left inside forwards. Maybe against a defensive Burnley team, this would be a great opportunity to build the team's understanding playing in this formation. And for the fourth and final prediction, I've gone for a 4-2-3-1 with Tammy leading up front, Hudson-Odoi, Kai and Ziyech playing in the attacking areas. In midfield, I've gone for Kova and Jorginho with the standard backline in defense as well. And my thinking for this is that this was a formation that Tuchel used a lot of at Paris Saint-Germain, and in a sense, Tammy Abraham is like the Cavani. They lead from the front, they can press very high, incredible movement in behind too. We could then see players like Hudson-Odoi and Kai moving more in field, because we know that with Tuchel and his positional style of play, he likes to have these guys playing in the half spaces, playing close to the striker, and in that sense, the beauty of this system would be on the free role that Ziyech would have. And this would be very similar to how Tuchel used Neymar at Paris Saint-Germain, and for me, if there was one player that could maybe replicate that type of ability, it would be Ziyech, because he has an outstanding range of passing, outstanding technique. We haven't even seen the full best of him, but we've seen so many positives in terms of how he uses the ball, how he manipulates things, and if you were to give a player a creative free role like this, for me, it could only be Hakim Ziyech. Playing this way would allow the fullbacks to stay high and wide. And with this positional style of play, essentially it's about pinning the opposition defenders in areas that you want them to be to create those 1v1 overloads in the wide areas. I do feel like Tuchel is going to like Tammy because Tammy's movement, his ability to press and work for the team, these are elements that coaches always want and respect in their strikers, and this lineup would be dependent on Werner and his form, and whether Tuchel feels that it's the right time to use Werner in the game. So you guys, they were my 4 predictions for the game. You guys in the comments below, give your thoughts and opinions. What lineup did you agree with? If you agree with none of them, give us your lineup in the comment section. And now to give my match prediction and just end this video. Of course, I feel like we are going to see maybe Tuchel's first win against Burnley. It's going to be interesting to see how we cope against another team that focuses on staying in their low blocks, that don't really make too many attempts to press high and leave their shape, because with the players we have, we can punish teams that give us space in these areas. I've been studying how Tuchel coached at Paris Saint-Germain because I feel like that is more reflective of us compared to his time at Dortmund. At Dortmund, we have to understand Dortmund's club model does focus on using young players from their academy, signing great young players for their potential, and playing that attacking style of football that can just boost their market value. And of course, essentially, that is the club model. So for me, Paris Saint-Germain is more reflective of what Tuchel could do with us because the standards are different. The standards are higher. You have big name players to work with, players that cost a ton of money, and of course that expectation to win things come the end of the season. Me, I'm going to be paying close attention to how Tuchel finds that balance. Is that going to be on maybe a set team, set players in that, or are we going to see that balance come from different formations against different opponents? There's so many things to learn and observe. And for the game tomorrow, I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. I feel like when it comes to getting those 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 wins, you need to have a better understanding for the attacking players, and that can only come with time. But you guys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. I'm EFC, this is Blue Lions TV. Come on Chelsea, let's hope we get that 3 points in tomorrow's game.